Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishna Project podcast. This is episode number 174. Yes, we've made it to our 174th episode, and we're still online. We haven't been taken off air. I've received no letters in the post. I'm grateful to our ever growing global audience for tuning in every week to not listen to me, to listen to our guest or our guests. And I feel genuinely very privileged that every week I get to interview somebody from our very diverse and colorful Gaudiya Vaishnav community. And this week, for me, is another special one because I met our guest certainly in this life about 5.5 years ago for the first time. And we can talk about that a bit later on. But just to remind you, if you are watching this on YouTube, which is one of the ways you can watch this podcast, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. Or if you're watching this on Facebook, which is the other platform you can watch these podcasts, please do, if you haven't already, click like or follow to the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page. As you know, at the Hare Krishna Project, as well as these podcasts, we do other things as well. We do book distribution, school visits, Hare Krishna festivals, all those things that keep me out of trouble. Um, okay, episode 174. It is a blessing actually to have a sannyasi back on the show. I love to invite sannyasis every now and then. I'm delighted to welcome Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj as our guest this week. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for inviting me. I'm very happy to be online with you.
It's great to have you with us, Maharaj. I know I shared with you this before we hit the record button, but you have been on my radar for some time to invite, and I'm sorry it's taken 174 episodes to get to you. Um, but I appreciate you giving up your time today. We did meet 5.5 years ago in the Gorgovinda Gaudiya Mat Temple in Birmingham when I had the opportunity to interview you for a book I was writing about the diversity of the Hare Krishna movement in Britain. And I do remember that interview very well. And I appreciate how welcome you made me feel during our time together that day. So let's start with the first question. It's the first question that allows us to get warmed up. So please tell us a little bit about you and where you are from.
Where am I from?
Yeah.
Mr. Betsy. Well, yeah, I've got a British passport. I was born during the air raids in World War II in London. Don't remember it, but my body remembers it. I grew up in Bath and went to Oxford, studied chemistry there, and realized that's not what I wanted to do. Dropped out, became a monk, a Zen monk in Japan. I was in, in Japan for 2 years in a Zen temples there, studying under Nakagawa Soen Roshi. Realized that that's not what I was after either, but during that time, I'd made contact with, actually, I found a copy of Sri Ishopanishad in the temple. And I also found a copy of a wonderful book called Sri Ishopanishad. Of course, it's a wonderful book. But and also what made a big impression on me was a book called The Way of the Pilgrim by a Russian peasant, probably written about 250 years ago. He found out how he heard that we should pray without ceasing. So he became obsessed with this. How do you pray without ceasing? So he was going around trying to find direction, and at last he found a starets who instructed him in reciting the Jesus prayer. Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy upon me, a poor sinner. In Russian, of course. I don't know the Russian. And the book depicts his progress and then his wonderful states of blissful contact with Christ, with God. I was so impressed. And also I met another form of Buddhism called Pure Land Buddhism. So Pure Land Buddhism, they teach there that Buddha didn't come to teach silent meditation and becoming enlightened by your own strength. He taught relying on grace and chanting the name of the compassionate Buddha. Namo Abhidhammo, Namo Abhidhammo, Namo Abhidhammo, like this. So I got into sound. And finally, when I was ready to leave, I'd realized that, I went into a process called Naikan, looking inward, where you look at your life and specifically your relationships with near and dear, starting with your mother. 3 questions. What have I received? What did I give in return? What trouble did I cause? What trouble and distress did I cause? It was very intensive. I lasted for about 3 days. And during that time, I realized that I had been absolutely selfish, completely selfish on the one hand. And on the other hand, I realized that my real nature is serving. That's our real business. But I didn't know whom to serve. So I came back to UK. I knew I had to serve. I didn't know whom. I knew I had to chant the holy name, but I didn't know which one. And I knew that I wanted to read the Sanskrit literatures, Vedic literatures, but I didn't know which ones. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I tried to fit in with a family. That didn't work. And then I realized, okay, I've got to cut myself off. Whatever comes next is going to be totally different from anything I've known before. So I cut myself off completely. And then one day I was trying to find a phone box in London. I was walking, couldn't find a phone box anywhere. And finally, I came across a phone box. There were a row of 3 or 4 of them, all full. Somebody there. And I was waiting. Somebody comes dressed like this from a flat just on the other side of the road. So there were 2 places in London where devotees were living at that time. Now, this is end of 73. So Hare Krishna was not a fashionable trend, put it mildly. There weren't very many Hare Krishnas at all. But there were 2 places in London where they were living. One was Bury Place, near the British Museum, and I'd been there. And there was another flat. I hadn't any idea about it. But anyway, there was another flat where they were living, and I had stopped at a phone box immediately opposite that place. And while I was waiting, a devotee came out and wanted to make a phone call. And I'm standing there in my kimono, shaved up still. He said, "What are you doing?" This is Portobello Road, as far as I remember. So it's kind of groovy. So I said, "Well, I'm looking for a spiritual path. I think I should chant the holy name, but I don't know what holy name to chant." He said, "Oh, you should come with me. We do it all the time." I said, "Okay." And that was it. I went back with him. He gave me some first aid, Prashad first aid, played me a tape of Srila Prabhupada. That was a Saturday. And then Sunday, we went to Bury Place for the Sunday feast. 3 days later, I was shaved up off in a Sankirtan van distributing back to Godheads and like that on the street. Deep dive. After that, well, I've really been around. Spent time in East Africa, Kenya, America. Then I went to Scandinavia, came back to UK, and I was kind of on the edge of I'm pleasantly on the edge of the community there. I was married at that time with children. And then I realized that I was on my own. I was having a really, really difficult time. Marriage broken up. Absolutely no support whatsoever from the GBC, temple president there, community, whatever. I was on my own, and I got into recovery. And then after a couple of years, Srila Narayan Maharaj came. So I'd heard about him. There was a big scandal because of a meeting at Krishna Balaram Mandir in Mathura, where he had said that if Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada, if he only spread the holy name and gave Bhagavad Gita all over the world, then he's a servant of Mahavishnu. But actually, he's the servant of Rasaraj Mahabhav, which is the divine form that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited to Ramananda Roy, Godavari. But devotees took it completely wrong. Said, "Oh, he's saying we're a servant, Prabhupada's a servant of Mahavishnu." completely wrong. Anyway, that was in maybe 93. And then later on, he came 96. I thought, okay, I'll go and hear from him. We heard he's a nice devotee. And GBC says we can't go. But anyway, so what? And I went and it's like, wow. Immediately, not absolutely immediately, within 2 days, I was really bewildered. This is like being with Prabhupada. I couldn't understand it. I went to see him and I said, I don't understand. It's as though you and my spiritual master are like one person, but I know you're different. He said, no, we're not very different. He's Swami Bhaktivedanta Maharaj, Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, and I'm Swami Bhaktivedanta Narayan. Uh, and then I was, I asked him, you're saying that we need higher association. You're saying, okay, there's lower, like junior, peers, and then there's higher association. We need higher. Who are these higher devotees that I should be associating with? So he said, well, did you meet your spiritual master? I said, yeah. Was there some effect? Yes, certainly there was. So is there anyone now who has the same effect? And I kind of mentally scanned all, GBCs, gurus, sannyasis, yada, yada, yada. I said, no, only you. So anyway, to cut another long story short, after a couple of years, I went to India. I started traveling and teaching, preaching in 2000. Mostly in Russia and then in Ukraine. I went to other places, other countries as well. I spent a month in China, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, in Europe, but mostly Russia, Ukraine. And then in 2013, I decided traveling, this isn't doing me any good. And I don't think it's really what the community needs either. So I settled down. Devotees in Ukraine had made some arrangements, so I stayed there. And I lived in Ukraine for 4 or 5 years until 2019. I came back thinking, I came back to get some documents and then go back in 2 weeks' time. That was 2019. I haven't been back since. There was a problem with the documents, and then I had a very serious health challenge, and then COVID, lockdown, then the war, like that. So in the meantime, I'd been sculling around London, different places, that were available, and then that flopped. And then somebody in Wales here said, well, there's a mobile home. You might like to stay here. There's a vegetable patch and like that. I think it'd be quite conducive. So I came. That was about 4 years ago. And I've been here by myself since then, working on writing, making videos, training. My main emphasis, or main obsession, I would say, is the first purpose of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada's first purpose, to propagate spiritual education to society at large and to educate all peoples in spiritual techniques, to correct the imbalance of values and introduce peace and unity. That's what I've been concentrating on. I didn't say I was in America with the Bhaktivedanta Institute while Srila Prabhupada was here. I joined in, actually beginning of 77, I joined in. And I spoke at the first Life Comes from Life conference a month before Srila Prabhupada passed away. And then I continued. I was in America for some time with Sadhaputta. I spent a lot of time with Sadhaputta. He was like not everyone knows about him, actually. He's become a little obscure, but I mean, absolutely brilliant scientist. Brilliant. Amazing. Anyway, he kind of introduced me into the mood of presenting science, a scientific approach to Krishna consciousness, or scientific, sort of, you can say, apologetics. He introduced me to that, and I've been going since then, largely on my own. And now where I am with it now is that I've got a project. Actually, right now, I'm working with AI, Chat GPT, And ChatGPT has presented themselves, as my student. I'm consultant for them, and we're engaged in a Socratic dialogue where I'm asking key questions, and ChatGPT is coming up with a series of self-evident, undeniable realities, which actually the Vedic wisdom gives us. Sankhya philosophy, then the individual conscious self, relationship, love, universal stuff, which is Paramatma, like that. So, yes, defeating materialism, but also establishing our basic siddhanta as self-evident and undeniable, and then in the meantime trying to dip into Srila Narayan Maharaj very much emphasized that don't stay in one place for so many years, progress, and he very actively championed, represented the mood of Braj, means the mood of the Brajbasis in Vrindavan, that they relate with Krishna completely without awe and reverence. Very, very natural relationships. And not relating to him as though he's God, but the relationships are very open. And because there's no awe and reverence, so they're very, very close relationships. So, and he encouraged us so much to try to become immersed in those moods. He was saying he's saying that this is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give. Anarpita chirin chirat karnaya avatirna kalu samarpayatamunnato jalarasam sabhakti shriyam. He's explaining that Lord Chaitanya came to taste unnato jalaras sabhakti. That's the mood of Srimati Radharani. That's what he came to taste. Krishna, trying to forget that he's Krishna and trying to become totally absorbed in Srimati Radharani's mood. And what he came to distribute, not so much by himself, but through his followers, starting with the 6 Goswamis, Unnatojalarasa Subhakti Shri. So Shri means beauty. So it's the beauty of Srimati Radhika's mood, which is the mood of her maidservants. So he's encouraging us to try to understand this and delve in and realize. I think that kind of brings me up to date.
Thank you, Maharaj. I really appreciate that. The first question is always an interesting one because different devotees give different answers based on a whole number of things. So thank you for that. Can you tell us a bit about maybe an encounter that you had with your spiritual teachers? So A.C Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and Bhaktivedanta Narayan Maharaj. Maybe tell us about a meeting you had with each of them and how they inspired you in different ways or the same way.
With Srila Prabhupada, when he was at the manor in 1977, I joined in 73. He was at the manor in 1977. He had intended to go to America to establish Varnashram Dharma, but his health didn't allow. So he stayed at the manor for about a month, and I was living in that manor at that time. During that time, Sarab Damodar Prabhu, as he was then, before he took sannyas, he was head of the institute. And Srila Prabhupada was so much emphasizing this project, the Bhaktivedanta Institute. So he came through UK on his way to India to start preparing for this conference. And I went to Heathrow Airport to meet him. And then I came back in the car with him. And when we got to the manor, there was a message saying that Prabhupada wants to see Sarab Damodar immediately. So he went up, and it was just like, when Srila Prabhupada met his Guru Maharaj for the first time, he offered obeisances. And before he even got up, Saraswati Prabhupada was saying, I think you're educated young men, you can go and preach in the West in English. So Sarab Damodar Prabhu offered obeisances. And before he got up even, Srila Prabhupada was talking to him about scientific preaching. Now, Prabhupada at that time was really, really weak. He'd stopped walking. Very, very weak. Uh, so they were talking about, Prabhupada said, we are not animals that we deny education. But if you use your education to prove that God does not exist, this is a waste of time. He said, people are suffering so much for this. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sarva Karna Karna. And then he started crying and crying. So they kind of mopped him down. And then he asked Srila Damadas, so who's this? It was just, as far as I recall, it was just the three of us in the room. And Srila Damadas said, this is Gyanadas, Srila Prabhupada. He's one of our Oxford scientists. So Prabhupada looked at me and said, so, do you agree? And I said, I agree, Srila Prabhupada. So it seems to me that I don't know, he kind of branded me at that time or something. I didn't feel anything specifically at the time, like, oh, this is a huge change in my life. But I do think that it was a key encounter because I've never forgotten that mission since then. That was meeting with Srila Prabhupada. One incident with Srila Narayan Maharaj. It was the day after Kartik, and he had I forget what it's called, endoscopy or something like that, something on the heart. So he was in kind of a somewhat frail condition physically. And something had come up, and my mind was really disturbed that on the one hand, I'm supposed to take complete responsibility for my life, and on the other hand, I'm supposed to be completely surrendered. How does that work? And I couldn't make it out. And it was really turning my mind over. And in the end, I went out on the bank of Yamuna. That time, there was a very broad sandy bank. So I went out and I sat down in a lonely place, and I was just chanting, oh, surrender, responsible, surrender, responsible. In the end, I said, Gurudev, I just accept you. I can't figure this out. I just accept you as you are. And I was chanting really deeply in that mood, kind of, feeling close to him. Eyes closed. And then I feel somebody walking around me. I thought, oh my God, stupid Hindus. And then they started walking around again. So I opened my eyes. And there's Pujabhat Madhav Maharaj, Srila Narayan Maharaj's servant, and another devotee, Gokul. So I'm still kind of half in and half out. I'm looking at. And Madhav Maharaj said, Gurudev sent us. I said, Gurudev? And he pointed to the distance, about 50 yards away. There was Gurudev, and Gurudev waved, and then turned around and started walking back towards Gopinath Bhavan. So we all ran over to be with him. And Madhav Maharaj related what had happened, and Gurudev said, yes, very good process. So we walked back to Gopinath Bhavan, and he and Madhav Maharaj went into the room, and Gokul stayed outside. So then he related what had happened. Srila Narayan Maharaj had told them, today I will show you a devotee in Samadhi. We'll walk by Yamuna. So Madhav Maharaj was a bit anxious because, Gurudev was easily tired and like that. So they walked for a bit, and then Madhav Maharaj said, oh, we should go back now, Gurudev. No, we go a little further. And then they went on a bit further, and Madhav Maharaj again said, oh, we should stop now and go back. No, we go a bit further. And they went on a bit further, and then they saw me in the distance. And Srila Narayan Maharaj said, go and do parikrama. So that's why they were walking around me. It was very mystical because later on, when I looked where I was sitting, it wasn't visible from Gopinath Bhavan. It was completely mystical. And I wasn't, anyway, it was a very mystical experience. And I felt like, Gurudev's with us, especially when you call out for him or when you feel close. He's really close. So those are two meetings, one with Srila Prabhupada and one with Srila Narayan Maharaj.
Can you tell us a bit about that? I don't know if I don't know if transition period is the correct term, but tell us a bit about that transition period for you in your life from serving within the ISKCON community to serving in a different community of Gaudiya Vaishnavas under the shelter of Narayan Maharaj. What was kind of going on in your life, and how were you then received by devotees in ISKCON? I mean, because I know that times weren't easy. Tell us a
Mm.
bit about that. You come out to friends you've got in ISKCON, hey, I'm now serving Narayan Maharaj. What was the response?
I didn't go out. I um, I was in America with the institute, and then somehow or other I had to leave the institute because there was some internal friction. And then I was a headmaster in Philadelphia for some time, the Gurukul. And then I went up to Boston. And then Adi Keshava ran off with his secretary. And I had a choice of staying with Hari Sori, I think Maharaj as he was then, or when I saw Hare Krishna Maharaj. So Hare Krishna Maharaj, he was favorable to scientific preaching. And Hari Sori, they called him Heavy Harry. I thought, okay, I think I'll make a pitch to Hare Krishna Maharaj. It was like out of the frying pan into the fire, actually. So I went to Sweden, and it was a pretty strange setup there, actually. I mean, he had a lot of very, very devoted followers. It was like basically it was like a cult following. And then there was God brothers like Vegavan Prabhu, Ajit, Krishna Premi, others who were not so much involved in the temple. I mean, they're part of the community and not so much in the temple. Then 84, 85, there was a rebellion of the North American presidents, I think, against the GBCs and Acharya system and like that. And we took the side of the presidents. So we were demonized. We were out. I got married at that time, and my then wife was disciple. Actually, she'd been accepted by Srila Prabhupada, but the temple presidents in Boston she was from hadn't told her for whatever reason. So she was disciple of Hare Krishna. Anyway, we were demonized, and so we were living like by ourselves. There was a small community living. We were living by ourselves, meeting and like that, and that was okay. It suited me. And then I came back to UK in 1986, and I was living in Cambridge for some time. That was just before Bhagavan went down. We came back in, I can't remember, February or March, something like that, and he went down in just after Rath Yatra, as far as I recall. So I was on really good terms with all the, with the presidents and all like that. I used to come to the committee meetings and like that. I took part in the, what was it, Vaishnav education training meetings. Akandadi convened. So I was quite at peace with the whole thing. And then the family broke up. I went into crisis, and I saw that I wasn't getting any support whatsoever from the temple community. It was like, I went into recovery that time, which helped a lot. So there was a group of devotees who were going through the 12-step, not for alcoholism, but for other, anyway, whatever. And then Srila Narayan Maharaj came, and I was with him for 2 weeks, and I was completely sold. Within 2-3 days, I was completely sold. This is the real thing. He's talking about love. And nobody was actually talking about love in ISKCON at that time. In fact, I was chastised for kind of bringing I wrote an article saying that it seems to me that Srila Prabhupada was saying that his devotees, to some extent, were developing love for Krishna. And one of my senior godbrothers, he was furious. He said, that article was very invasive. I know that I don't love Krishna. What's more, I don't believe you love Krishna either. Heavy duty. So anyway, I came back, and the then temple president, Damodar Prabhu, he said, oh, there's been a question about your loyalty. And then one Shiksha disciple of Srila Narayan Maharaj, we were talking together after I'd spoken to Damodar. He said, better get out before they kick you out. So I thought about it. I thought, yeah, actually, that's what makes sense. Because if I develop in the way that Srila Narayan Maharaj is talking about, I'm going to be mainstreaming skepticism from the peanut gallery. So I just withdrew, and we had a very nice group, reading, just a small group, reading and chanting, Sunday program and like that. And yeah, that was the year of the centennial. And time Rath Yatra came, and I found out that, yeah, I'd lost a lot of friends, very close friends, wouldn't even look at me. That was 96. And then, so we just continued, with our small group in isolation, mostly in isolation from the, I'd go to the manor, no problem. Some people are friends, some not. And then 98, I left everything. The family had broken down. Nothing was happening there. And so I was advised, best if you go to India and just start there. So I went there, and yeah, I had preaching a lot in Russia and Ukraine. There was some quite heavy incidents there, like being rejected. It wasn't until whenever I went to Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, no problem. And actually, the head pujari there is a disciple of Srila Narayan Maharaj. Everyone knows that. And also in Mayapur, no problem at all. In fact, about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I think, I actually took part in there was a conference, about a week or 10 days conference, discussing the Temple of Understanding project. So I took part in that. It was a bit uneasy. I was sitting next to Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, who had been very caustic against Gurudev. And I'd written an article called Shout Like Hell, anyway, as I saw, rebutting his points. When I came back to UK, and I didn't have so much to do with ISKCON devotees, And then 2 years ago, there was a reunion of Prabhupada disciples. Amita Prabhu had arranged. And I was thinking, I don't know whether to go or not. And I was very nervous about it, actually. And in there, I put my name down and I thought, I don't know about this. So I rang up Amita, and there was no reply. I thought, okay, I put the phone down. I thought, okay, I'm not going. Forget it. This is just too much. And then he rang back. He was so welcoming. I mean, so welcoming. I just melted, I said, okay, I'm coming. I put the phone down and just burst into tears. So when I got there, I was very like, whoa, what's this going to be like? And some of them were kind of edgy with me, but a lot of them were very, very welcoming. And then just recently we had another reunion, and it was great. I mean, I've been away for a lot. They've been around in UK, knowing each other 50 years. Just imagine. I mean, that's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Really extraordinary community. But, they're very, very accepting. But, I mean, I'm not interested in campaigning for, changing anyone's mind or anything like that. So I just mind my own business. And if there's people that I can work with, like I've taken part in 2 or 3 Bhaktivedanta Institute conferences online. Brahma Tirtha is very welcome. We're the 2, more or less, the 2 surviving members of the Bhaktivedanta Institute that was in 77. And he's really, really welcoming. So it's kind of patchy.
I did see the photos, Maharaj, a couple of years ago on, I think it was Facebook, of yourself at the Prabhupada Disciples Reunion. And I actually found it quite heartening to see that you were there. And I think there was a few other people in the photo as well that I saw. And I thought, wow, it's great that everyone's together.
Yeah.
Despite the differences that they've had over 50 years, they've come together for Prabhupada. And that's the most important thing.
Right.
So I did see those photos, and you were wearing your sannyas cloth, weren't you, I think?
Yes, I was. And this time also. Some of them found it a bit difficult to cope with that. What I found, to be honest, I found that their mood of devotion, especially that year, like 2 years ago, The group spent some time glorifying departed Vaishnavas.
Mm.
And the whole ethic of service and devotion to Prabhupada was so strong. I mean, you could, cut it with a knife or spread it on bread. And I think, to be honest, more than the general, it's a thicker mood of service, I think, than I'm experiencing now.
I certainly sense that even within the last 10 years, things have got better in terms of devotees working together, serving together. Certainly within the last decade, ISKCON has become less tribal. I mean, there still are tribes and there's still a tribalistic mood in ISKCON, but certainly if you go to Bhaktivedanta Manor now, there's a range of devotees at the morning program. There's devotees from different mats. There's Ritvik devotees as well, and everyone seems to be more open about it now in terms of everyone coming together. So even within the last decade, I think that things have got better in terms of unity.
Srila Narayan Maharaj is not so dangerous now that he's apparently left. And of course, his sangha is more in disarray than ISKCON, at least externally appears to be. So, I mean, devotees. There's quite a large group of devotees in his sangha in London, and they regularly frequent. The not Bury Place, Soho Street. The temple there. Go for kirtans and like that. Ashram Maharaj went at one point for at least one occasion. He went for the Saturday Sankirtan, and Adikarta, I think it was, welcomed him and invited him to lead, which was quite far out. And I've also at the Glastonbury last 3 years, I think, at the Glastonbury Rath Yatra, I've been invited to lead the kirtan, and devotees appreciate that because I've still got a strong voice. So yeah, there is, and in Russia also. There's some melting. I have a nice relationship with Goswami Maharaj, the Goswami Maharaj, since way back when. A lot, actually, like, for example, I heard recently that one of the optional texts for teachers in the VIHE in Vrindavan is Srila Narayan Maharaj's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindhu. It's like standard text, right? So, and I've been told that his books are going viral, especially amongst the younger devotees. They don't. I heard that a very well-known second-generation devotee told their parents, "Look, you got this big thing about Gaudiya Mat. Well, that's your baggage. We don't have to take part in that." Something like that. So yeah, things are changing gradually, but the ideological difference, not Siddhantic differences of understanding about Guru Tattva, difference of understanding about Jiva Tattva, difference about understanding, what is Sambandha Abhidheya Prayojan, what's the actual goal? Are we supposed to be going back to Godhead? Or are we supposed to be developing love for Krishna? If so, what kind of love for Krishna? And what about this Brajma? All these things. So there's quite the big cultural differences between groups, big cultural differences.
Maharaj, I can see that you're wearing your sannyas cloth today. So obviously at some point in your life you decided, or maybe somebody decided for you, to enter the sannyas ashram. Can you tell us a bit about that in terms of what is the sannyas ashram and why did you choose to enter it?
I didn't exactly choose. No, I mean, like I said previously, the family broke up. I mean, yeah, family broke up early 90s. And then I left and went to India in 98. I started traveling in 2000 in saffron, just like as whatever, brahmachari, whatever. And there were various incidents, one by one, god brothers or peers, they were taking sannyas. And Gurudev was, Srila Narayan Maharaj, he was kind of holding me back. Right from the beginning, actually, when I got married in 1984, my godbrother, a Hungarian, I've forgotten his name now. He was disciple of Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Prabhupada, and then he took sannyas from Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami. He said, "You're 40 years old. What are you taking sannyas for now? What are you getting married for now? Your children will only be 10 years old when it's time to say, take sannyas." I said, "Take sannyas? Kidding? I'll never take sannyas." I never thought about it. I never gave it a second thought. And then when Srila Narayan Maharaj came, somehow I thought, I mean, you know, the family was in ruin. My family life was in ruin. I thought, I think I probably could, actually. So I spoke to him. And he said, "Yes, you can do. There'll be no problem. You'll travel and do so much." But still, when I went to India, he wasn't in a rush to give me sannyas. And in the end, there was one incident. I decided, okay, I'm not going to want this at all. Absolutely not. Whatever happens, I'm not going to want this. So then the next year, I think it was, or the year after that, he called me to his room with a couple of others. He said, "So, you want to take sannyas?" I said, "If you want, Srila Gurudev." He said, "No, you have to want." I said, "Oh, all right." And he said, "So then," and it wasn't a shotgun sannyas or anything like that. But I mean, he told me that I wasn't ready, but he was going to give me sannyas anyway. And then, to be honest, it didn't make that much difference. I was already traveling in saffron. So taking sannyas for me really wasn't that different. I was going around I was informal groups in Russia, and then I started in Ukraine. I'd started visiting Ukraine already. It wasn't a big deal there. You know, there was no worship of sannyasis or anything like that. I've never had my feet washed by devotees to this day. And it means, sannyas means getting free from all other entanglements and actually devoting yourself. I mean, there's two groups who get the same mantra: Babajis and sannyasis. So Srila Keshav Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, he gave Babaji Vesh to some devotees. Saraswati Prabhupada did the same. Very famous Akinchan Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, very, very close friend of our Srila Prabhupada. And actually, Narayan Maharaj also gave Babaji Vesh to one or two people. So they just keep themselves to themselves and just devote themselves to bhajan. And sannyas Vesh, sannyas dress, sannyas ashram is basically for preaching. Which I mean, I haven't been traveling and preaching for the last quite a long time. I've just been concentrating on writing, but I've reached a kind of a turning point in the writing. I go, okay, I've been looking for something like the keystone, I suppose, and I found it. And like I said, you know, I'm writing this book with ChatGPT. ChatGPT has agreed to be the author. The book's going to be Vedic Post-Materialism, an alternative to a dying worldview by ChatGPT, guided by Swami Nemi. So that I anticipate that I will be traveling pretty soon. But so that's whereas I mean, like Ashram Maharaj, for example, is very, very active. He's just started a project in Benin, in Africa. Tridani Maharaj, he also stays by himself pretty much. Vaikanas Maharaj, my very dear sannyasi godbrother and sannyasi godbrother, he travels a lot in America. So it's various, you know, some do, some don't.
And in terms of traveling around the world, do you get much support with that? Do you have disciples? Do you have followers? Do you have students?
I was traveling from 2000 until 2013. I traveled a lot, especially in Russia and also in Ukraine. So I gave initiation. I was told, gave initiation there after Srila Narayan Maharaj left. And in Ukraine also, I have disciples there. So, like, I'm due to give Hare Krishna this evening. I feel like I've neglected, well, I have neglected them. In terms of traveling, no, there's no support. And it was like that. Srila Narayan Maharaj, he made that point. You don't ask for your fares. So I took a vow that I wasn't going to beg, I wasn't going to work, and I wasn't going to rely on anyone in particular. This was in 98, I think. And I stuck to it. I mean, it was real white knuckle. At one point, I was in Singapore. I had $5 left. Anyway, I stuck to that. I never have. But I always, I went places and I would get donations, and there was always more than I needed, and I would give donations to Srila Narayan Maharaj at the end of my tour, like that. So I was just, he taught us. One time, he said, come to my room. No one should see. Oh my God, what's going on? Some scandal. So he was off somewhere, and I was waiting outside the room, and he came, and he opened the door. He said, "Come in." And I closed the door, and then he was standing like right opposite to me, and he reaches into his pocket, and he pulls out a $50 bill, and he said, "This is so you'll know that Krishna will always look after you." So that was his. He was so simple. I mean, you see beautiful photographs of him just sitting under a tree. He didn't go for big sannyasa, big vyasasans and stuff like that at all. It's very, very simple, and he taught us to be simple as well. One time I brought an ISKCON, senior ISKCON devotee to Srila Narayan Maharaj. This devotee wanted to receive sannyas from Srila Narayan Maharaj. And Narayan Maharaj said, well, you can decide what you want. You have to decide. If you want pure bhakti, be here. And then he pointed at me. He said, he doesn't have any position and no title, but he travels everywhere and preaches. So I understood that. I mean, that was an instruction to him, but it was also an instruction to me. Don't worry about titles and stuff like that. Just go ahead and preach like that.
Thank you, Maharaj. You've mentioned a bit about writing and your love of writing. I believe you've written a number of books over the years. Can you tell us a bit about your books and what inspired you to write them?
Yeah, well, that's the first one that I wrote, Darwin's Secret Identity. Now, this is, you can see, this is it wasn't exactly pre-computer, but every page number, every line, every picture, everything was literally cut and pasted. Everything. That was I printed that in 1984. I wanted to show that this is right. Krishna consciousness is right. And Srila Prabhupada was so insistent. He so much wanted scientific proof of the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. So, and it became like completely absorbing mission for me. And I was with Sariputta. He was taking an empirical approach to some extent, like taking results and showing that you can't explain this in terms of materialism, but you can explain it in terms of Krishna consciousness. My inclination was to take a more philosophical, or when I say philosophical, Siddhantic approach. And that's what I've come down to, is showing that the basic, like all the Sankhya elements, 24 elements of Sankhya, individual Atma, Paramatma, like this. They're self-evident and they're undeniable. So that means if you take an empirical approach, it means when you're talking to people, you're going to be using scientific terms that they're not familiar with. You're going to be presenting scientific results that they're not familiar with. And it's not so easy for the person in the street to follow. But what the approach that I have is a very like conscious common sense approach, and which anyone can see. It's like you're talking about things which are in your face, self-evident, and you can't deny it. Coming up to love and spirit love. Everybody knows what love is, and you can't deny it, because we wouldn't be here without it. If our parents hadn't loved us, if teachers hadn't loved us like that, we wouldn't be here talking about the absolute truth and all like that. So it's something that any thinking person can grasp once it's pointed out, but nobody's pointing it out. It's amazing. Materialists say that only matter exists, only the physical laws act. But we're doing things that matter doesn't do, can't do. And we're making things that matter can't do, starting with information which isn't even physical. But nobody protests. I mean, you've got the intelligent design people, God bless them, doing a fantastic job. Amazing. Stephen Meyer, James Tour, like that. Great. But they don't have the conscious approach.
Mm.
But nobody's really coming at like challenging just on the basis of common sense, on logic. What you're saying doesn't make sense. It's not just that it's false. It doesn't make sense. If only matter exists, only the physical laws act, when you talk about that, it's all meaningless. If it's only the physical laws acting, everything's just automatic reactions and nothing means anything. Your talking has no more meaning than waves breaking on the shore somewhere. Simple. It's really simple. So I had faced a lot of opposition in the family. And I think part of that, very, 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 very domineering, especially mother, and completely opposed to Krishna consciousness, totally opposed. And I was like fighting for an identity, I suppose, valid identity. I think Krishna bred me like that, actually, just so that I would, get this together. And writing keeps me out of trouble. I love to write, actually, it's a fact. Writing, and yeah. I spent a lot of time, like in Sweden, I was there for some time, living in a hunter's hut on the edge of everything, and literally, cutting and pasting. This is with a typewriter. And this is pre-computer at that time.
And other books as well, Maharaj. You've showed us your first book. I certainly remember about 5.5 years ago when we met in Birmingham. I think then you were writing a book or finishing a book or something.
I've always been writing a book or finishing a book, always. I've got what I'm working on now. There's a book called Wellbeing in Spirit Love, and the previous one before that was Proof of Spirit. And then there's another one, Wellbeing in Spirit Wholeness, which is about spirit-based personal development, and Wellbeing in Spirit Synergy, which is about spirit-based group development, which basically it works on the principles of Varnashram, but without instituting Varnashram, and no dhotis, no saris, no Sanskrit terms or anything like that, but just helping people to, like Prabhupada was saying in the Varnashram College, help people to identify their talents and work according to their talents and cooperate with others. At the same time, understanding that there's higher cause, higher being, higher power. Varnashram is very open spiritually. It's not about people being devotees to Krishna at all.
Is there a place online that people can go to buy your books? Do you have a website, or are they on Amazon or something like that?
Oh, I do have one on Amazon. It's called Vedic Vision and Choices. I forgot to mention that. That's about 3 modes of material nature, or three approaches to life based on the 3 modes of material nature in 7 areas of life. So knowledge, action, cooperation, consciousness, self-identity, universal self, that's paramount, and relationship, those 7. And how the 3 approaches to life. So you got the sattvic approach, positive, harmonious. Then you got the passionate approach, overactive, hyperactive, and the careless, destructive approach, tamasic. And I also put in demonic approach is a special case. It's like a mixture of passion and ignorance.
Mm.
They're very passionate, so they're very, but at the same time, they're intent on destroying the natural order. So that's, and then also the transcendental approach. So it's actually, it's a 5x7 grid, but it's a book. It's not just grid. That's available on Amazon. Right? Otherwise, regrettably, I'm trying, somebody's trying to help me to get a website together, but it hasn't come together yet. I could do with some help. If there's anyone out there who wants to help, I'd be really grateful for the help.
Absolutely. Thank you for putting out that plea. If anyone is able to help Nemi Maharaj with tasks like that, I'm sure he'd be very, very grateful. It would be wonderful to find all of your books in one place, certainly online, certainly links to them, so people can read them.
Yeah.
So it's from your first book over 40 years ago to the most recent book.
Yeah, and if anyone's interested in this, I'm calling it living, loving logic, conscious common sense. This approach to establishing self-evident, undeniable, fundamental principles for living and for society at large. If anyone's interested in that, then I'll be more than happy to, communicate with and cooperate with them.
Conscious common sense. I love that. Conscious common sense. And with this podcast, Maharaj, I will put maybe links to your Facebook page or something, or we can certainly talk about how people can contact you.
Good.
I might not put your email address online, but certainly I want to make sure people can contact you in a way.
Facebook, WhatsApp.
Yeah, Facebook or WhatsApp. We can definitely do that.
Great.
The next question is a question that I only really reserve for sannyasis. So this question hasn't been asked many times. But if you were given 5 minutes to broadcast a live message to the world on every TV and radio station, what would you say?
I would talk about 5 things. Love, spirit, community, Veda, and mantra. This is because I'm coming from a first purpose background. So pointing out that world's in a mess. We're not going to be able to change, what's happening, Israel, Iran, America, Russia, Ukraine. We can't change that, but we can make an alternative. To do that, we need to cooperate. To cooperate, we need to agree on fundamental universal principles that we can accept, all of us accept with doubtless certainty. So that's where these self-evident, undeniable realities come in. Most obvious one is consciousness. We know we're conscious, and you can't deny that consciousness is real without consciousness. So it's both self-evident, it's undeniable. So we need to concentrate on consciousness. What's the highest level of consciousness? It's love. Love means finding our own well-being in helping others to find their well-being. So we received that from mom, breastfed, fed, sheltered, clothed, all these things. Basic. This is essential. Without that, we can't survive. Higher than that is conscious love. Raising our own level of consciousness by helping others to raise their level of consciousness. So that's first thing, love. Then second thing is, what is consciousness? Here's the wild thing, that if we look at consciousness and we look at spirit, we see that they're actually exactly the same thing. Consciousness is aware of matter, and it acts on matter from outside the realm of matter. And so does spirit. And consciousness is eternal. I was 5, I was 10, I was 15, I was 20. My mother can say, what I was like before I was even born. It's all, the I is there, it's constant. And spirit is also eternal. So consciousness is covered spirit, and spirit is uncovered consciousness. So when we talk about conscious love, the highest level of conscious love is spirit love, which means making our relation, finding our relationship, improving our relationship, well-being, in relationship with the divine, in helping others or helping all, including ourselves, to find our relationship with the divine, loving relationship with the divine. So that's two, love and spirit. And then the third thing is community. So what's the ideal thing? Society itself should be sacred community dedicated to welfare for all, meaning spiritual as far as people can go. But it's for all, for trees, for animals, birds, people of all grades, sacred community. So that should be what society is about. That should be what the leaders should be stressing. Are they? No. They're stressing power and profit for themselves and for elites. So sacred community, that's the third thing, that should be the nature of society. Real science and real religion, spirituality, should make this known so that everybody understands that this is actually fact. It's not just a sentimental whimsy. And real leadership should make that a reality in society, just like the kshatriyas would do. That's the third thing. Then fourth thing is Veda, Vedic knowledge. So my title is Bhaktivedanta. What is the anta? What's the end of Veda? It's Bhakti. Veda supports all kinds of spiritual practices and all kinds of material practices as well. You want to merge into the divine light? Okay, there's directions for doing that. You want to develop mystic cities? Okay, there's directions for doing that. You want to practice karma yoga? Okay, there's directions for doing that. Do you want to make your loving relationship with the Supreme Transcendental Personality? Yes, that's there, Bhakti Yoga. And contrary to what many people believe, it's there in the Upanishads as well. Yasadeve tar bhakti, yatha devi. That bhakti, performing bhakti both to the Supreme Lord and to Guru. Then all Vedic realities become real. And then, of course, I'm going to talk about Krishna consciousness, but coming into that, so what is the most powerful spiritual practice? It's mantra yoga, especially the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, because that's put down in the Kalishantra Upanishad, for example. That's specifically this: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This 16-word mantra is the means by which we can cross this ocean of birth and death. And in this age, we can't sit down and meditate for years and years and decades and hundreds of decades at an end. We can't perform amazing sacrifices. We can't perform very extraordinary deity worship. We don't have the wealth, but we can chant the holy name. And in this age, this Kali Yuga, because we're coming in line from Lord Chaitanya, so the holy name in this age is very special. It's imbued with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Vrindavan mood. So those five things: love, spirit, community, Veda, ultimately coming to Vaishnava, because Vaishnavas got such a keen, fine understanding of the real importance of the Veda, and then mantra. And in Veda, Bhakti Yoga also. And what's the most important part of Bhakti Yoga? Hearing, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. Hearing, and also chanting. And then when we're chanting, what? Smaranam. Remembering also. That's the essence of our practice. Was that 5 minutes?
Yeah, it was wonderful. And I love how you've answered a lot of the questions in a very succinct way. You've really got to the point. And I love this expression or this phrase, or this mission statement, if you like, conscious common sense.
Yeah, that's what
I
the
love
world
it.
lacks.
It's just it just tells you what it is on the can, isn't it? Conscious common sense.
That's what they can do. I give you a simple example. If you look up Cambridge Online Dictionary for a definition of chance. So it's this chance is the force that makes things happen when there's no cause for them for doing it. What? It's absolute gobbledygook. I turned that up to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT said, this is a masterclass in semantic delusion. But this is Cambridge online and then Oxford. Okay, Cambridge and Oxford. Oxford, you got Richard Dawkins, supposedly was the professor for public appreciation of science. I mean, the guy talks so much nonsense. He's not just wrong, absolute gobbledygook.
Mm.
Like he says, science gains its credibility by making matter and energy jump through hoops on demand. Okay, well, that means that science is more than just matter and energy. So I, a scientist, I'm more than just matter and energy. Harry Ball. They can't see. They just can't see. Prabhupada said that. They have no common sense, and that's what we have to challenge. You read those transcripts, not just this life comes from life, that's strong. But you read the original transcripts, they cut out a lot of the instructions to devotees. It's heavy duty, it's hair raising. Prabhupada is so uncompromising with material scientists, so uncompromising, because they have no conscious sense and they're passing off as men of knowledge. He said that we have to challenge. He wrote, he said, you should all write vehemently. If it's a little offensive, it's all right. They should be punished. That's the stable we're coming out of, that's in my DNA. What can I say?
When you were talking just now, Maharaj, and talking about conscious common sense and talking about your kind of, I've written down your 5-point plan. It's a bit like a manifesto, isn't it? I
Okay.
think but I was thinking actually of René Descartes when you were talking. So René Descartes, as you're probably aware, was the French philosopher from the early 1600s, and he kind of doubted everything. And then he concluded that he must exist because he can think.
Ego
Or yeah,
cogito ergo sum.
yeah, I think, therefore I am. So he was also looking for the lowest common denominator. And I think for him it was consciousness.
Consciousness, but also specifically the self, the conscious self. But he couldn't answer the doubts of people like David Hume, for example.
Mm.
So some people think there's a conscious self. Well, I don't think there's a conscious self because whenever I look for the conscious self, all I find is some thoughts or feelings. So I don't believe there is a conscious self. Okay, dude, so who's that I? Who's the I who's looking? That's the conscious self. But Descartes, he came before Hume anyway, but duality is not so popular. But then you got Sir John Eccles, for example, Nobel neurophysiologist. He showed experientially that the conscious self is a non-physical entity that acts on the body through the dominant hemisphere of the brain. It's proven. Others like Sir Charles Sherrington, like 100 years ago, this was known. 100 years ago, like Sir James Jeans, Sir Arthur Eddington, they were saying this universe, the matter of which it's made is like mind stuff. James Jeans said this universe begins to look less and less like a great machine and more like a great thought. So it's been there, but it's just been suppressed. And I'm a kind of a champion of the underdog. I'm a bit of an underdog myself also.
Yeah. I'm the same. I always like to champion the underdog.
We'll form a club championing the underdog.
Yeah, yeah. That's certainly something that we both have in common. I always like to support those that need the support.
Mm.
If I give a donation to something, it's because they actually need it. I mean, that's a relative term to need, but anyway, we're going off on a tangent. But you and I are very similar on that. You've mentioned already, Maharaj, that you've got a program later on, and I know that people can contact you. I mean, some of the viewers and listeners of this podcast might want to meet you. I mean, do you welcome guests, or do people need to listen to your online classes? How can people engage with you best?
Just get in touch. I mean, Facebook and WhatsApp is easy.
Okay.
And I've been bad at keeping in contact with people in the past, but I'm trying to change that. I feel like I've turned a corner. Okay, it's time to come out,
Mm.
And I'll be very, very happy to I'd be very happy to, be in contact with people and meet them or whatever.
Hmm. Thank you, Maharaj. That's great to know because I think a lot of devotees are often looking for are looking for some inspiration and someone to guide them and inspire them and influence them. And I certainly believe that you've inspired others, and I know you can inspire more people. So yeah, I'm very keen for people to contact you if they can.
That's my business at the moment. I'm coming to last furlong, kind of the last straight. And yeah, we have to pass on the baton. I mean, whatever I've gathered, experience, inspiration, insight, whatever, 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 and the instructions that I received also, it's time to share those. Otherwise, it's gone.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Maharaj. I think I'm going to say goodbye to the viewers and listeners at home. We've been certainly recording for well over an hour. You and I have been chatting quite a bit longer. But it's been great to welcome Bhaktivedanta Nemi Maharaj as our 174th guest. I can't even say it. 174th guest on the Hare Krishna Project podcast. I'm grateful to him for giving up his time. He may or may not remember, but I told him 5.5 years ago, but I know he meets many people. I also grew up in Bath.
Oh,
It's a beautiful city. My
yeah.
parents are still there, so yeah, it's a great place. And certainly I remember one of the things I remember from our conversation 5 years ago that you grew up in Bath. I was like, wow, a sannyasi.
Okay. So I'm really
So
grateful for your invitation, very grateful for the opportunity to speak to a wider audience than I usually get. And yeah, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for the viewers who will be viewing when this goes online. And I'll be really happy to be in touch with you all.
great. Thank you, Maharaj. So just a quick reminder to everybody before we go, do not forget if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. And or if you're watching this on Facebook, which is the other location that you can watch these podcasts, please do like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page. Those are the two ways you can keep in touch with what we're doing here at the Hare Krishna Project. And of course, I love to receive feedback. Maharaj and I are both currently in the United Kingdom, which is a democracy. So you're entitled to your own opinion if you if you have one.
Somewhat.
So feel free to get in touch. I always love to receive feedback, particularly positive feedback. Okay. I shouldn't have said that. It opens up a whole can of worms, I can assure you. Okay, so until next week, I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.